nuclear physics. We want to know what is going on inside the nucleus, 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 inside the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, the number of protons in a given nucleus determines what the element will be. The lightest element is hydrogen, with 1 proton in its nucleus. Turns out to be orders of magnitude inside the nucleus and the Coulomb force, and is effectively inside. So what is nucleus? The answer is that there must be a force, which we can call the nuclear force or the strong force, which is substantially greater than the Coulomb force. In fact, we can guess, since elements which have about 100 protons in their nucleus start to break up, that the nuclear force must be comparable to the Coulomb force, where you have 100 or so protons. The Coulomb force falls off as a function of r squared. This means that if you double the distance apart, the force falls off fourfold. This is a force of repulsion. The nuclear force must be a force of attraction, but it clearly does not extend much beyond the range of the nucleus, so we can assume that the nuclear force will rapidly fall to zero once we get beyond the radius of the nucleus. We can also assume that the nuclear force must itself become positive when the 2 protons are touching. Otherwise, the 2 protons would be forced to merge together. Finally, we know that the nuclear force must be significantly greater than the Coulomb force over the range of the nucleus. We can guess the shape of the nuclear force as something like this. But exactly what is the shape of the nuclear force, and what is causing it? These are the 2 key questions associated with nuclear structure physics. We can assume that there is some kind of interaction between the protons and the neutrons in the nucleus. There are 3 types of interaction: proton-proton, a neutron-neutron, and a proton-neutron. Each must somehow exert a nuclear force on the other over a very short range. Calculating these forces for the impact of 1 proton or neutron in the nucleus on the many other protons and neutrons is very complicated. So in the early days, physicists resorted to modeling the nuclear force. These models were called phenomenological models. This is based on macroscopic, which means we look at the whole nucleus as an entity, rather than the microscopic approach, where we try to calculate the interaction of each particle in the nucleus with every other particle. But before we look more closely at these models, we first need to establish how we are going to do any kind of experiment which will enable us to find out something about the nuclear force. We cannot look at the nucleus under a microscope because the size of the nucleus is far smaller than the wavelength